As climate change exacerbates, gets significantly worse, the world as we know it today will not be the same. So climate change is happening, it's getting worse. So how is it happening? So there is a phenomenon called ENSO. It stands for El Nino Southern Oscillation. Basically, it's a phenomenon that looks at how the wind affects the climate, and basically, when the wind is weaker, the warm water stays more on the southern America, Pacific Ocean region, and then these warm waters, the Indonesian region experiences colder waters, warming of waters of the Pacific and southern coastlines. It has drastic effects, especially for countries that rely on farming, like Peru, Mexico. These coastal areas that rely on their fish being there, and if the ocean is warmer. Well, first of all, the ocean's steadily getting warmer and warmer each year. It's not that good, but when these serious events happen like this, where it drastically gets worse, there's less fish. The fish move over here where it's cooler. In return, it's not just fishing; it's also diseases. So if they move over here, then as the air is warmer, the coastlines lose the fish. They also experience more heavy rain because it's hotter there. The moisture gets trapped in the clouds, and that results in more heavy rain as a result of condensation, the transformation of gases of moist air into a liquid, and basically that results in more thunderstorms. It results in more rain. It also resorts in droughts too, as well, because a hotter atmosphere results in more evaporation. So it's overall pretty bad that this is all happening. Also the effects of mosquitoes, like I talked about, or maybe I didn't. Mosquitoes. What other else? Oh, rodents too. Rodents will go to places that have more vegetation. So if there's more rain, then maybe there'll be more plants for them to eat. So that results in more rats, which results in more plague outbreaks, which results in more deaths. And it's overall pretty bad that climate change is happening. It's not just things are getting hotter and things are going to be worse somehow. No, these are plague outbreaks, fishing reductions, economy busters, more people in hospitals. It's overall pretty bad. Kind of does remind me of the RDC video on climate change.
Hey! All right, guys. People are dying right now. There's toxins in the air, pollution. People are choking. We need y'all help right now.
Oh my God.
It wasn't that shooter
And
that was
the
standing
monkey.
up there.
I was so
What are y'all talking about? Hey, I just said people are dying right now.
There's red particles falling from the sky.
Yes.
And people are just falling over.
Exactly. Right.
Oh, that's early.
Yeah,
That
it
is
is
pretty
early.
early. I thought it happened 45 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Hey, 45, what are y'all talking about? My family's dying right now. Come on, please.
That's
Oh,
why.
he said it.
That's why he
No,
cares.
they only care
Hey,
about his ears.
you didn't read that article in 1999 where it said if we don't stop doing it to the climate, people are gonna die?
I mean, no,
I gotta put it out right here. Hey, read it now. Read it now. Hey, what about his from 2005?
Hey,
Did you read that one? Huh? Or what about his from 2015?
What is it?
And then we wrote a whole book. We wasted our time in 2022.
What the fuck?
Y'all didn't read none of that, huh?
Hey,
Yeah, it's too late now. You know when you can help? You know when you can help? In 1999 when I wrote the article. Well, that's the past. This is now. Carbon footprint too big. No, ozone layer's being depleted. Sorry, guys. Those ice caps are gone, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no more animals.
No.
Oceans are gone. Yeah, you guys fucked up this time.
So going further and looking at the effects of El Nino, we're going to be specifically looking at mosquitoes, and specifically the dengue fever. So every year, mosquitoes in most tropical and subtropical countries cause millions of cases of dengue fever, a virus that induces potentially lethal flu-like symptoms. And they spiked in 2019 as a result of, fast-growing infections. And climate scientists have, attributed potentially to the effects of El Nino, as it says here, potentially by El Nino. And going further down the article, it does talk about how more than 22,000 people likely would not have contracted the dengue in the absence of the unusually extreme weather conditions of El Nino that was around 2016. It starts in 2016, and then it's the aftermath, 2023. And if they're attracted to more warm climates, then El Nino is obviously going to expedite the amount of mosquitoes in Southern America, in Florida, in Texas, and, you know, those southern states, of course, in Mexico, of course, you know, like I said, that Pacific region, that Southern American region, and it's going to result in more mosquitoes, which is going to result in more plague outbreaks, like I said before. As for the economic damages that El Nino causes, this was the 1997-98 El Nino, and it caused over $32 billion in damages to the U.S., including the destruction of infrastructure, the depletion of food and water, the displacement of communities, and outbreak of diseases. So overall, climate change is going to contribute to more deaths, to more economic destruction, destruction of infrastructure, displacement of families, and probably the destruction of many families as a result of those diseases. This is not a left or right issue or a politics issue, or at least it shouldn't be a politics issue. I mean, this is a matter of survival. You know, places like Hawaii, you know, the Department of Health is obviously monitoring the situation. I'm sure they're smart enough, they're more educated enough to know that, you know, severe weather events, you know, like El Nino are going to cause, you know, more warm climates and, you know, more mosquitoes. And, you know, they're obviously monitoring the fact. This was published on the 27th of March. So they're monitoring the effects of, you know, mosquitoes, the dengue virus, which, you know, is, you know, gonna become more prolific, especially with the super El Nino that's, you know, coming this year, which I'm gonna, you know, talk a little bit more about. So before I even get into the facts of the case of what's actually going to be happening, I mean, look at this infograph on the previous El Ninos and their effects and the ones that are projected now. I mean, for people who don't know the conversion of, you know, Celsius to Fahrenheit, because a lot of Americans know a lot of Fahrenheit because that's what our news uses. The conversion to Fahrenheit will be around double plus 32, so about like 34 degrees Fahrenheit, I guess, if you were to convert it to Fahrenheit. But that's only an approximation. The actual formula is 9.5 plus 32. But to get a rough ballpark estimate, about double plus 32. So yeah. Okay, so I'm reading in The Independent. So read with me. A strong El Nino would accelerate global warming. So this is a strong El Nino, not a super El Nino. God, I need to get better at Spanish. Alright, anyways, if a human industrial civilization had not been eagerly warming the world for the past century or two, we could expect El Nino's extra heat to ultimately dissipate. But now scientists fear the phenomenon may lead to a permanent and sudden jump in global temperatures. Due to the increasing concentration of greenhouse gases, the climate system cannot effectively exhaust the heat released in a major El Nino event before the next El Nino comes along and pushes the baseline upward again, Defense Department meteorologist Eric Webb told the Washington Post. Indeed, the El Nino 2023-2024 reportedly contributed to the 2024 being Earth's warmest year on record. A super El Nino, not a strong El Nino, a super El Nino in 2026 to 2027, according to climate scientist Z. Kostfather, would push up our estimate for 2026 global temperatures. Well, it's not likely to surpass the 2024 as the warmest year and make 2027 very likely to be the warmest year on record. That comes after federal meteorologists calculated that the winter of 2025-2026 was actually the warmest on record for the continental United States, despite brutal blizzards in Northeast and Midwest. The findings underscored how a warmer climate in general can have unpredictable and varied impacts across different regions. The East, especially Northeast, had winter, said National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Climate Monitoring Chief Russell Voss. In the West, there were certainly places where you could say we missed the winter. I mean, this also doesn't even consider the fact that like the glaciers, as a result of global warming, are reportedly to continue melting, and that will obviously contribute to flooding. You know, places like Florida, which is already suffering from flooding, and other places, you know, other coastlines around Americas, around the Europes, around the Africas, of course, everywhere. Climate change is everywhere, and it's gonna get worse for everybody. It does not benefit really anybody. Now, how could I mention global climate change without mentioning the American military? Hell yeah, brother. All right. So 5 million tons of CO2 emitted in just 14 days of the US war on Iran, analyst finds. It's reported in The Guardian, the British newspaper. The US Israeli war on Iran is a disaster for global climate change, according to an analyst that finds it draining the global carbon budget faster than 84 countries combined, as warplanes and drones and missiles kill people, level infrastructure, and turn the Middle East into a giant environmental sacrifice zone. The first analyst of climate costs has found the conflict led to 5 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions in its 14-day period. The article goes on to note one of the most shocking images of the war has been the dark clouds and black rain that fell over Tehran after Israel bombed 4 major fuel storage depots surrounding the city, settling millions of liters of fuel ablaze. The analysis estimates that between 2.5 million and 5.9 million barrels of oil have been burned in that attack and similar attacks, including Iranian retaliations on its Gulf neighbors, emitting an estimated 1.8, I don't even know what that word means, the CO2 but whatever it is, it's probably bad. Oh god. Maybe that means tons. 1.8 million tons, 88 million tons of CO2 emissions. That's probably what that means. That's really all the things I wanted to talk about. I mean, we're expecting super climate change to be coming soon. The American wars are obviously not helping climate change and greenhouse gas emissions and, you know, the carbon footprint. And, God. Really, the carbon footprint should be called the death footprint. Because, I mean, all these people are going to be dying because of that CO2 emissions and sea level raises as a result of glaciers melting and water being flooded in. And, oh, God, there's so many things that are going to happen as a result of climate change. And none of it is going to be good. And everybody's going to die. And everybody's going to be destroyed. And lives are going to be destroyed. And families are going to be, you know, broken apart, and plague is gonna come about that has never been seen before, and things. Overall, it's gonna get worse, and I guess you can hope for the best.